The story of Chitraketu, Skanda 6, chapter 14 to 17. Chitraketu, the king of Surasena, had 10 millions of wives, but he had no son. Rishi Angiras once came to him. The king expressed regret for his childlessness. Angiras performed a yagna in honor of Twastri and gave the sacrificial remnants to the eldest wife. You shall have a son, O king, said Angiras, but he will give you joy and sorrow both. In time, the eldest queen bore a son. Her co wives grew jealous and poisoned the child. Chitraketu was deeply moved, and he wept profusely. At the time, Narada and Angiras came to him. They taught him the worship of Sankarshana. Chitraketu became fixed in the meditation of the second manifestation of Chaturvyuha, and this made him very powerful. He became the king of Vidyadharas. Once Chitraketu was roaming over the firmament on the chariot given him by Vishnu when he saw Shiva surrounded by his attendants openly embracing his consort Bhavani. Chitraketu made some taunting remarks in the hearing of all. Shiva simply smiled, and so did his attendants. But Bhavani cursed Chitraketu with an Asura birth. Chitraketu accepted the curse with an unruffled mind, saying it was the way of all beings to meet with things pleasant and unpleasant in this perishable world. And he only asked Bhavani to pardon him if he had offended her. Look how bold the followers of Vishnu are, exclaimed Shiva. They fear nobody in this world. I am also a follower of Vishnu, so I took no offense at the words of King Vidyadhara. Chitraketu became Vritra by this curse, but his magnanimity and devotion to Vishnu were not lost. The Daityas, Skanda 6, chapter 18. Kashyapa with Diti gave rise to Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, and 49 Maruts. Then with Sanhrada gave rise to Mati, Hiranyakashipu gave rise to Anuhrada, Hrada, Prahlada, Sinhika. And Anuhrada gave rise to Vashkala Mahisha. Hrada gave rise to Vatapi Ilvala. Prahlada gave rise to Virochana Bali, and which in turn gave rise to Bana and 99 sons. The Maruts, Skanda 6, chapter 18 to 19. Diti was very much grieved by the loss of her sons caused by Indra. She ardently wished to have a son who could kill Indra. With this object, she served Kashyapa with all her heart and pleased him much. Kashyapa offered to give her any boon, and she prayed for an immortal son that would kill Indra. Sorely perplexed in mind, the rishi thought within himself of a device. He said, I grant you the boon, but you shall have to observe Punsavana Vrata for 1 full year. This is a Vaishnava Vrata, the performance of which requires absolute purity of body and mind. Kashyapa related the details of his wife. His object was to give an immortal son to Diti and purify her mind by this Vrata, so that she might cast off all enmity against Indra. He also thought it possible that his wife might not observe the strict rules for such a long time. Diti, however, accepted the conditions and she bore a son. Indra became very much frightened and he closely watched his stepmother to discover a breach of the rules. He followed and served Diti always and tried to please her. One day, Diti became very much tired and she fell asleep after eating before she could wash her hands, mouth, and feet. Finding this opportunity, Indra, by his yogic powers, entered the womb and split the child into 7 parts. The Maruts wept and requested their half brother not to kill them. Indra consoled them, saying that they need to have no fear from him, and he would make them his companions. He then split each of the 7 into as many parts again. By the favor of Vishnu, the Maruts were not destroyed, but came out all alive from the womb of Diti. It was a little short of 1 year still. Indra made them drinkers of Soma and his chief companions. Diti woke up, and she was astonished to find 49 sons by her. Tell me, Indra, if thou knowest, said she, how is it that I have these 49 sons instead of one? Pray do not conceal anything. Indra gave the whole story to Diti and expressed great repentance. He assured Diti that the Maruts would be his best companions. Diti's mind had been purified, and she allowed her sons to become devas. Thus, the Maruts, though born as Daityas, became immortal devas. Marut Vayu air, Vayu corresponds to the sense of touch and to vital energy. Skanda 7, the mysteries about the Suras and the Asuras. Skanda 7, chapter 7, 1. Raja Parikshit said, to Bhagavan all beings are equal, and he is the dear friend of all. Why did he kill the Daityas for the sake of Indra, as if he was not above partiality? Supreme bliss himself, he had nothing to gain from the Devas. Being above the control of the Gunas, he had no fear from the Asuras. He did not bear any unfriendly feeling for them. We are in doubt as to the virtues of Narayana. Please clear up the doubt. Sukha replied, void of gunas, without beginning, without manifestation, beyond Prakriti, Bhagavan pervades and permeates the gunas of his Maya. Hence, his seeming relations. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are not his gunas, but they are the gunas of Prakriti. These attributes or tendencies of Prakriti do not all prevail at one and the same period, but they have got their periods of increase and decrease. That is, since the beginning of the universe, the general tendency which guides all beings is different at different times. Thus, at the very outset, there was inertia, tamas. This inertia was got over by rajas, which predominated in the Prajapatis, and the life forms appeared on the globes. There was tamas again, the mineral kingdom, which had to be conquered by rajasic activity, and rajas was in full swing till humanity reached a certain stage. Then sattva manifested itself for the evolution of men. The spiritual regeneration will be brought about by the ever increasing prevalence of sattva. When sattva prevails, Bhagavan favors the devas and rishis. When rajas prevails, he favors the asuras. When tamas prevails, he favors the yakshas and rakshasas. He follows, in fact, the periodic tendency. It is kala or periodicity that now brings up sattva. So the Lord seems to favor the hosts of devas in whom sattva prevails. He also seems to put down the hosts of asuras who are opposed to the devas, being full of rajas and tamas. It is also to favor the asuras that he kills them. For we have seen above how the gatekeepers of Vishnu became Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu by the curse of the Kumara brothers. They had to become asuras for three successive births. In the second birth, they became Ravana and Kumbhakarna when they were killed by Rama. In their last birth, they became Shishupala and Dantavaktra when they were killed by Sri Krishna. Then they became finally liberated and restored to their place in Vaikuntha. The spiritual ascent commenced finally on the appearance of Sri Krishna. It was to prevail for the remaining life period of the universe. The Asuras had done their work by this time, and therefore they finally returned to Vaikuntha. Thoughts on the above. The Daityas and the Danavas are both called Asuras, but there is a radical difference between the two classes. The Daityas are opposed to the Adityas. The root verb da means to cut to pieces, to separate. Diti is that which separates. Aditi is that which does not separate. Jivatma is the same in all beings. One life principle animates all the forms of creation. The idea of separateness did not exist from before. The elementals that began life in this kalpa from the spiritual plane have hardly any idea of separate existence. The Devas and the Pitris are described as classes and not as individuals. In the mineral kingdom, again, there is no individual existence. Individuality has to be worked out, and the sons of Diti bring about this great work in the evolution of life forms. When we have the sense of separate existence strong in us, we become capable of further evolution. By our individual experiences, we know what is right and what is wrong, what is pleasurable and what is painful. Things that give joy give pain as well. It is the measure of pleasure or pain that teaches us what to covet and what to shun. Then we have the fact that by our very existence, we have duties to perform. The teachings of other ages that are revealed to the rishis and proclaimed by them give us a better idea of things, and they tell us more than we can know of by our own experience. The asuras lead us on till we reach the highest point that, with a sense of individuality, we may attain. When the individual soul gathers all experience that may be acquired by the idea of separateness, it traces back its way to that spiritual home whence it came. In the return journey, it is helped by the Adityas who gradually efface the ideas of separateness by an ever increasing infusion of sattva. Vishnu himself became Aditya and taught men the unity of all souls. The Adityas who guided the early elementals had to be crushed so that separateness might grow. Pushan and Bhaga were therefore overpowered by the attendants of Shiva at the sacrifice of Daksha. The Adityas who guide humanity in their return to spirituality are themselves high spiritual energies, the highest devas of our Triloki. Our evolution is thus twofold, individual and non individual. When we work as individuals, we are under the influence of Daityas. When we want to cast off separateness, we are under the influence of the Adityas. In both cases, however, it is the bliss element in us that is worked on by the Daityas and Adityas. This bliss element is our eternal heritage from Ishvara, and it is this element that saves us in our contact with manifold matter. The measure of bliss, or ananda, enables us to judge what matter to accept and what not. Individuality developed under Hiranyakashipu, and all sorts of blissful experiences were acquired. The sons of Hiranyakashipu were all called bliss, but the perfection of bliss was in Prahlada. He found out that the worldly joys were unreal, and that the real joy could be had only from Him above, who was joy Himself or itself. But Prahlada did not realize there was one life underlying all beings, and that all beings were essentially one and the same. He was separate in his devotion, though unselfish to the extreme. He knew that men had separate existences, and while he attained perfection, others did not. It was therefore his duty to raise to his level. With all unselfishness and devotion, Prahalada was an asura because he worked from the standpoint of individual life. The foster father of Sri Krishna was Nanda, the word meaning also bliss. But the bliss of Gopas and Gopis consisted in forgetting self altogether. The bliss that was then evolved will draw humanity to the highest level of spirituality in our kalpa. The reign of the Daityas may be divided into three periods. Number one, the period of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Number two, the period of Ravana and Kumbhakarna. Number three, the period of Shishupala and Dantavakta.